Yesterday, the fall economic statement confirmed what former finance minister, the budget officer, and the Globe and Mail already told us, that this weak and now wounded prime minister hijacked the statement to drive Canada through the fiscal guardrail and over a cliff. $62 billion in overspending. That's 50% higher than their own target set just months ago. They told us over and over again that the deficit wouldn't exceed $40 billion. Simple question. Why did they mislead Canadians again?
Yeah, way to go,
The Honourable Minister of Finance and for Intergovernmental Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, far from misleading Canadians, the government thinks it's important to be transparent in terms of the fiscal picture of the government. That's why, Mr. Speaker, based on legal advice and accounting practices, the government booked contingent liabilities that increase the initial deficit projection to the level that my colleague referred to. Mr. Speaker, this is about righting historical wrongs with Indigenous peoples, something the previous government, Conservative government, ignored. And Mr. Speaker, we think the responsible thing to do is to be transparent with Canadians. That's exactly what we did.
That's right.
The Honourable Member for Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, of the Liberal ministers that still remain, not a single one would stick around yesterday to even defend the statement. They dropped it here and then ran out the door. $62 billion of new debt and new inflationary spending for Canadians to pay on their grocery bills, on their home heating, and on everything else. That's equivalent to spending $1 every second for nearly 2,000 years. The Prime Minister has clearly lost control of his caucus. He's lost control of his cabinet. He's now lost control of spending. So when will he give Canadians the chance to weigh in and call a carbon tax election?
That's right. Way to go, Melissa.
The Honourable Minister for Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, we have no lessons to learn from the Conservatives, Mr. Speaker. On the eve of Christmas, what we presented to Canadians, Mr. Speaker, it's no time for slogan. It's no time for smiles, Mr. Speaker. This is time for us to be serious. What the Minister of Finance presented yesterday was a fall economic statement which is focused on growth, investment in our workers, investment in our industry, and investment in Canada. Mr. Speaker, you know what? Because confident countries invest in themselves, something that the Conservative could not understand. We'll stand for Canadians. We'll stand for Canada on this side of the House.
The Honourable Member for Wellington Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, who is in charge of the clattering train? The Prime Minister has lost the confidence of Canadians, and now he's lost the confidence of his MPs and his cabinet. He's focused not on Canadians, but on himself as he clings to power. Yesterday, the government posted a $62 billion deficit, blowing through the guardrails. The government is careening out of control. Things are in complete chaos. When will we get an election?
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, what the Conservative opposition is doing is they are focused on us while we are focused on Canadians, Mr. Speaker. We are focused on ensuring that we are delivering affordability measures for Canadians at a difficult time. We are focused on ensuring that we have a strong relationship with our most important trading partner, the United States. That is what this government is squarely focused on: Canadians, protecting the Canadian economy and protecting Canadian jobs. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Wellington Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, not only did the statement post a $62 billion deficit, it revised 2025 growth down, and it revised 2025 unemployment up. The Prime Minister has failed to recognize the gravity of the moment. He's focused not on Canadians, but on himself. His government is in utter and complete chaos. So when will the Prime Minister realize that the end is here, that his government and this Parliament is dead, and call an election?
The Honourable President of the Treasury Board and Minister of Transport.
Mr. Speaker, on the contrary, we have the lowest debt and deficit in the G7, Mr. Speaker, and in addition, in the fall economic statement, Canadians can see supports for affordable housing, supports for $10 a day childcare, supports for public servants who want early retirement, Mr. Speaker, because on this side of the House, what do? We support Canadians as opposed to what they do, which is cut, cut, cut.
L'honorable député de Louis Saint.
The honourable member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, we do, of course, congratulate the new finance minister. Just 9 years ago, in 2015, he, the Prime Minister, and everyone on that side of the House, they were elected promising 3 small deficits, and then in 2019, a $0 deficit. Then, a few years later, he posts the worst deficit in Canadian history, $62 billion. How can he look people in the eye and tell them that everything's going well? Can he, the new minister, tell the Prime Minister that he needs to call an election to determine whether or not he deserves the confidence of Canadians?
Ministre des Finances.
The Honourable Minister of Finance and of Intergovernmental Affairs. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my colleague for the congratulations. Now, Mr. Speaker, it will come as no surprise to you that we do not share his pessimism. We have a lot of confidence in the Canadian economy, in Canadian workers, and in the fall economic statement, which gave Canadians a lot of hope, especially as regards support to them during tough economic times. We've also announced very significant investments. I'm excited to talk more about them this afternoon. For instance, we are investing in our border to protect Canadians and also work with our American partners. We're here for Canadians. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, it's Finance 101. A deficit is money that you don't have. $62 billion is money that we don't have. It's money that we're punting down the road to our children, grandchildren, and great-children who haven't even been born yet. They will have to pay for today's poor financial management. All Canadians knows that the Prime Minister is alone in his bubble. Canada has never before had a Prime Minister so narcissistic, selfish, and full of himself. The problem, though, is that all Canadians, even those who haven't even been born yet, are going to have to pay for his poor management. When will there be an election so we can elect a good, strong, Conservative government? The Honourable Minister of Finance and of Intergovernmental Affairs. Mr. Speaker, it will come as no surprise to our colleague that we disagree with the idea of having a Conservative government which would cut and gut the programs that support Canadians. They voted against our $10 a day daycare program to help Canadian families. They voted against the Canada Dental Plan. Mr. Speaker, Canadians expect a responsible government. We're focused on supporting Canadians through economically, financially challenging times. This is what our government is doing. The Honourable Member for Terrebonne. Well, with a $62 billion deficit, we can all agree that it's no time to be offering election goodies. Yet, in yesterday's economic statement, 98% of the new money to combat the rising cost of living is the GST holiday. Worse still, this purely electoral measure represents almost everything the government is doing to tackle the cost of living between now and 2030. This 2-month tax break, which the former finance minister described as a costly political gimmick, well, this is the Liberals' long-term economic vision. If that's the long-term economic vision, do they understand now why Quebecers are calling for an election? The Honourable Minister of Public Services and Procurement. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We know that the Bloc Québécois and the Conservatives have been talking about elections and only elections since December. We have been supporting Canadians and Quebecers since 2015. That's why, for example, we put forward the Canada Dental Care Plan. It helps 1 million Quebecers. It gives them dental insurance that most of them never had before. Unfortunately, both the Conservatives and the Bloc Québécois insist on being against the Canada Dental Care Plan. And in fact, the Conservative leader claims it doesn't even exist. The Honourable Member for Terrebonne. Mr. Speaker, it's very simple. The Quebecers, in fact, never wanted the GST holiday. What's more, the GST holiday is downright harmful to our small and medium enterprises. Yet it's the only element of the economic update to deal with the rising cost of living. And it accounts for 98% of new spending. The Liberals are out of steam. They've run out of ideas, and they're running out of resources, human resources, after the resignation of the finance minister, who is joining 8 other Liberal ministers who are jumping ship. Quebecers deserve better than a government that's falling apart and crumbling before their very eyes. Will the Prime Minister finally call an election? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Finance. I think it's very obvious that the Bloc Québécois is against cutting taxes. But had they read the fall economic statement, they would know that we've created over 330,000 jobs in Canada. Well-paying jobs, Mr. Speaker. Canada has experienced the highest salary growth of all G7 countries. Canadians are bringing home paychecks that are 5% bigger, even after accounting for inflation, Mr. Speaker. We are making sure that Canadians' paychecks increase, Mr. Speaker. I'm hearing a lot of noise from the back of the room. I hope that not everyone will start talking without having been recognized by the chair. The Honourable Member for Berthier-Masquinongé. Once upon a time, economic statements contained measures. Today, they just contain bad news. What a contrast between the enthusiasm of 2015 and the cynical electioneering deficits of 2024. What a contrast between the solidarity of 2015 and the ministers who are jumping ship one by one. What a contrast between the Prime Minister who was a superstar in 2015 and the Prime Minister who tonight will struggle to get people out for his Christmas party. Mr. Speaker, it's over. That's it. That's all. It's over. Will the Prime Minister call an election? The Honourable Minister of Innovation. Mr. Speaker, I'm surprised to hear my colleague talk like that. In the fall economic statement, if he had in fact taken the time to read it, there are significant investments for Quebec in the statement. For example, artificial intelligence, which will be at the very heart of the 21st century economy. As you know, Montreal has the most startups of anywhere in Canada. And in the statement, there are investments for Quebec, for industries, for workers. Mr. Speaker, we expect each and every member of Parliament to celebrate Canada. It's time to celebrate Canada. Thank you.